welcome back to the Witchcast, your all things D&D channel. Today I'm gonna present my Wizard Necromancer build for D&D 5th edition. Guys, the Necromancer is probably one of the most famous archetypes in medieval fantasy. It's really fun to play and really fun to play against. But those that already tried the subclass for the wizard know that having too many minions may slow down the gameplay. For this reason, I'm gonna present you guys this build assuming we only gonna have 4 minions at any time. Furthermore, the wizard class is by far one of the most versatile classes in the entire game, with a huge spell list filled with different options. But I do not want to go over all those options on this video, and instead I want to focus only on the spells that are most important to create this concept. This does not mean that you shouldn't take any of the other good spells for the wizard class. Okay, so let's jump straight into the build. In order to create a Necromancer, I really wanted to go with the variant human. I know it's one of the most commonly used races, but honestly I just want one feat for this build and I much rather just start the game with it and then increase my ASI at every chance I get. The feat that's important for us here is the Warcaster. Among other things, it will grant us advantage on Constitution saving throws that we make to maintain our concentration on spells when we take damage. This is the most important thing that we need to do for this build, because we will be concentrating on spells all the time. Okay guys, so now let's go to our initial stats. We're gonna give ourselves a 15 in both Constitution and Intelligence, and we're gonna put our +1 bonus into those two stats. We're gonna put a 14 on Dexterity and a 10 on Wisdom. For this build, we're gonna use two classes, the Artificer and the Wizard. We're gonna start the game with a 1 level dip in Artificer. If we do that, we can grab some spells that we need, like Magic Stone, Spare the Dying, and Cure Wounds. We also can get proficiency in medium armor and proficiency in Constitution saving throws. Therefore, we can start the game having both proficiency and advantage on Constitution saving throws, as well as a good AC, meaning from level 1 our character is already really good defensively. The Magic Stone cantrip is gonna be our go-to cantrip on the earlier levels, and later on we will take advantage of it again. It is a bonus action to cast, it has a 1 minute duration, and it reads: you touch 1 to 3 pebbles and imbue them with magic. You or someone else can make a ranged spell attack with one of those pebbles by throwing it or hurling it with a sling. If thrown, it has a range of 60 feet. If someone else attacks with the pebble, the attacker adds your spellcasting ability modifier, not the attacker's. On a hit, the target takes bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Hit or miss, the spell then ends on the stone. If you cast the spell again, the spell ends early on any pebble still affected by it. On the early levels, it's really decent for a cantrip. The other cantrip we can get from the Artificer that helps building the idea of a Necromancer, it's Spare the Dying. It's an action to cast and it reads: you touch a living creature that has 0 hit points. The creature becomes stable. This spell has no effects on undead or constructs. This is really good because wizards don't really get the chance to get this cantrip. The last spell you should definitely get is Cure Wounds. This heals 1d8 plus your spellcasting ability modifier, and again it's not available to wizards. The other really important thing we got from the Artificer is medium armor proficiency. This, along with a shield and our +2 dexterity modifier, means we can have a 19 AC without any magic items, which is really uncommon for the wizard, because usually you are relying on mage armor and a +2 dexterity, which adds up to a 15 AC. After our dip in Artificer, we are gonna go now with Wizard, and we're gonna take 3 levels in Wizard. Here, I would recommend you take the following spells: Shield, Absorb Elements, Firebolt, Toll the Dead, and Web. At level 2, we will be able to choose our subclass for the Wizard, and of course we're gonna go with the Necromancer. At level 2, we will get 2 features from the subclass, the Necromancy Servant and the Green Harvest. Firebolt is probably the most common cantrip for the Wizard class, although in the first 4 levels of the game, I would not recommend you to use that because Magic Stone is a better cantrip for damage. In addition, we can always reflavor Firebolt to be a green flame instead of a red one. And this really helps us flavor our character because up to this level, we really do not feel like a Necromancer yet. So the Dead is the last damage cantrip I recommend for this character. It's really good when we encounter enemies that have resistance to fire damage later on in our career. Absorb Element is one of the most basic spells we take for the Wizard. Pretty much I recommend this for every single character that dips into Wizard. It's a really good spell defensively and can save you from spells and elemental effects like the Breath Weapon from dragons. Shield falls in the same category as Absorb Element. It's a really good spell defensively, especially on early levels. With this spell, we can get our AC up to 24, and at level 4, I don't really believe a lot of enemies can hit you with that kind of armor class. Our go-to spell for the early levels is Web, and this is true for pretty much every wizard. Among other things, it will grant us advantage on our attacks with our Magic Stone. At level 2, we will be able to pick 2 features from our subclass, the Necromancer Savant, which gives us a discount when we copy spells from the Necromancy School of Magic into our spellbook. And the other feature is the Green Harvest, which grants us a little bit of hit points whenever we kill a creature using a spell of first level or higher. Honestly, none of these features are really good and they do not help us feel like a Necromancer. So let's do a DPR breakdown of our character so far. I always consider that we're gonna have 4 combats per day and every combat has 4 rounds. Assuming we have a short rest in between the first 2 and the last 2 combats, this is how our combat is gonna work. On the first round, we're gonna cast Web, and Web does not deal any damage, but I am assuming it will grant us advantage later on. We're gonna have 3 attacks using our Magic Stone on the combat. Each Magic Stone deals 1d6 plus our spellcasting ability modifier. Assuming we have a 10% chance to crit and a 74% of actually hitting the target, that means we will do approximately 15 damage over the entire combat. If we divide that by 4, that means that our DPR for level 4 is 4. Let's compare this damage to my DPR baselines. The Warlock baseline has a DPR of 8 and a Champion Fighter has a DPR of 18. That means you're dealing half of the Warlock baseline. And honestly, that is because the big spell that we are using does not do any damage. But I still think it's a good move for your wizard on the early levels, because Web has a great impact on the battlefield. But don't really worry about DPR at this level. Later on you will see that with the help of our minions, we will be able to meet and even surpass the baseline. So now let's level up our character and take 4 extra levels in Wizard. That means that we're gonna be a Artificer 1 and Wizard 7. The spells we're gonna get at character level 8 is Animate Dead, Fatal Steed, Summon Undead, and Speak with the Dead. From our subclass, we're gonna get the Undead Thralls feature, and for our ASI of Feet, we're just gonna bump our intelligence. The first thing we need to talk about here is Undead Thralls. This is the main feature for the Necromancer subclass. It reads, at level 6, you add the Animated Dead spell to your spellbook if it is not there already. When you cast Animated Dead, you can target 1 additional corpse or pile of bones, creating another zombie or skeleton as appropriate. When you create Undead using a Necromancy spell, it has additional benefits. First, the character's hit point maximum is increased by an amount equal to your wizard level. Second, the creature adds your proficiency bonus to its weapon damage rolls. This is an amazing feature and it is exactly what you're looking for in order to build a Necromancer character. So now let's take a look of what the Animate Dead spell tells us. In summary, we can create a zombie or skeleton. It is a 1 minute to cast and we can control that undead for 24 hours. If we upcast that spell, we can create an additional 2 undead. After 24 hours, the creature stops obeying any commands we are giving it. So in order to maintain control over the creature for another 24 hours, we need to recast the spell. If we use the spell this way, we can reassert control over 4 creatures. We have 2 options here. The first option is to create zombies. Zombies have a lot of hit points, and by wizard level 7 they will have 29 hit points. They do not have a good attack, but they are perfect as a meat shield. The other option we get, and that we're gonna use for number crunching purposes, is the skeleton. Skeletons have a +2 proficiency bonus and a 14 dexterity. They can use both short swords and short bows, and I'm gonna assume we're gonna use short bows. That means that now we're gonna walk around with 3 skeletons and really start to feel like a necromancer. Furthermore, we will grab the Phantom Steed spell. This spell is amazing. It is as good, if not better, than the mobile feat, and it is completely free for us. We create a mount that lasts for 1 hour and it has a 100 feet movement speed. It can travel 10 miles an hour or 30 miles at a fast pace. This is perfect to bring into the dungeon, because if the steed die, you can just recast him and you don't even need to spend a spell slot. Furthermore, your Phantom Steed is way faster than a common horse. The next spell I wanted to talk about is the Summon Undead spell. And this is really a gem that we got from Tasha's Cauldron on everything for the Necromancer subclass. The spell with 1 action to cast has a 90 feet range and is a concentration spell that lasts for up to 1 hour. When we cast the spell, we can choose one of the 3 options: the ghostly form, the putrid form, and the skeleton form. The one I'm gonna use for number crunching purposes is the skeleton. The great thing about this spell here, that makes this a superb option for the Necromancer, is that our creature do receive the bonuses from undead thralls, making this already good spell into an excellent option. And this is gonna be our go-to concentration spell moving forward. The creature uses our spell attack modifier to hit, and it deals 2d4 plus 3 plus the spell level plus our proficiency bonus per hit. And the best thing is, their spirit makes a number of attacks equal half the spell level we use rounded down. That means that if we cast this using a 3rd level spell, the creature can attack only once per turn. But this spell is amazing to upcast. If we use a 4th level spell slot, the creature will attack twice per turn. If we use a spell slot of 6th level, it would attack 3 times per turn. The last spell I want to talk about is Speak with Dead. This spell does not deal any damage, and we won't use this for number crunching purposes, but I think it's important to grab this spell to keep our character on theme. So now let's do another DPR breakdown at level 8. The first thing we're gonna do in combat is to use our Summon Undead spell, and I'm gonna assume we're gonna use a 3rd level spell slot. Since we can command the creature without any action being required, I'm gonna assume the creature will be able to attack 4 times during the combat, dealing an average of 31 damage through the entire set. Like I said before, since I assume we're gonna have 4 minions at all times, that means that we're gonna walk around with 3 skeleton archers. That means that those skeletons will attack 12 times in the combat, dealing an average of 32 damage, which is not a lot higher than the damage that the Summon Undead creature can do, meaning that it is okay to sacrifice some of the skeletons in order to protect our Summon Undead creature. After we cast the Summon Undead spell, we're gonna use our Firebolt cantrip for the remaining 3 rounds, dealing an average of 19 damage through the entire encounter. If we sum everything and divide it by 4, means that we have a 23 average DPR. That means that we were able to surpass the Warlock baseline at level 8. And we do have an additional bonus here of having multiple bodies on the battlefield. And that by itself is really good, because those bodies can soak up damage that would otherwise go to yourself or your other party members. Now let's level up our character a bit more. From this point on, let's grab another 3 levels in Wizard and get our character to level 11. Through those levelings, we will be able to get the Dance Macabre spell. Also, we will get another feature from our subclass, which is a Immune to Undeath. For our ASIR feat, we are finally capping our intelligence at 20. Dance Macabre is not really my favorite spell, but if you do find yourself in a situation where your minions got destroyed and you don't have time to cast enemy death, we can use the spell to bring up to 5 creatures back in the combat. Also, when you reach level 10 in Wizard, we get resistance to necrotic damage, and our hit point maximum cannot be reduced anymore. This is another strong defensive feature. Finally, at level 12, we are gonna get our 2nd and last level in Artificer. And we're gonna do that because we will get 2 infusions, and we're gonna choose Repeating Shot and Enhanced Weapon. Both these infusions serve the same purpose here. We can create now up to 2 magic weapons that we can give to our skeletons. Because guys, I need to be honest here, at character level 12, it's really hard to imagine that you are not going to be fighting creatures with immunity to non-magical attacks. That means that aside from our Summon Undead spell, All the other zombies from enemy death can no longer deal damage to our enemies. And this is a nice way around that, because we can buy 2 short bows and just give those to our minions. Let's do a quick review of how the combat looks like. First we have you, and on combat you're gonna use a Summon Undead spell, you're gonna use Magic Stone, and you're gonna use the Firebolt cantrip. We also have your mount that you use to have a 100 feet movement speed. We will now use 2 skeletons with +1 bows. We're gonna give our last skeletons our Magic Stones. Now our 3 skeletons can deal magical damage. Lastly, we're gonna use our Summon Undead creature using a 4th level spell slot, so the creature will be able to attack twice on each of its turns. Let's go again to another DPR breakdown. The undead creature we summon can attack now 8 times throughout the encounter, dealing an average of 78 damage. Our 2 skeletons with a +1 bow also can attack 8 times, dealing an average of 34 damage. The skeleton that uses our Magic Stone to attack will hit only 3 times, and that is because on the first round we're gonna use our bonus action to tell our skeletons to attack the same creature that the Summon Undead is attacking, meaning we can only give our magical pebbles on the second round of that combat. So this skeleton throughout the combat will attack 3 times and will do an average of 13 damage. Again, we will also be able to cast Firebolt 3 times in the encounter, dealing an average of 30 damage. We will average 39 DPR for this encounter, getting us very close to the Champion Fighter baseline. Personally, if a character can beat the Warlock baseline, I'm satisfied, but I'm impressed that we can reach those levels of DPR having only a few minions in the battlefield. Now let's look at what happens to our character once we reach level 20. For the rest of our careers, we are gonna level up in the Wizard class. And what we are looking for is 3 things. First, the Create Undead spell, Finger of Death, and the Command Undead feature from our Necromancer subclass. I don't really have any recommendations for ASI or feat, so pick your favorite. The Create Undead spell is really a gem here, because if we use our 9 level spell slot to cast the spell, we can create up to 3 wights. And wights are much better than the skeletons we used to have, because wights can attack twice per turn, and they also have a feature called Life Drain. The target must succeed on a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or its hit point maximum is reduced by the amount equal to the damage taken. This reduction lasts until the creature finishes a long rest. The target dies if this effect reduces its hit point maximum to 0. A humanoid slay by this attack raises 24 hours later as a zombie under the wight's control, unless the humanoid is restored to life or its body is destroyed. Wights can have no more than 12 zombies under its control at one time. I know we've been casting spells to raise zombies up to this point, but nothing gets anywhere close to the number of zombies we can now have with 3 wights. For this build, I will not crunch numbers for those additional skeletons, especially because at level 20 every enemy you're gonna encounter will have immunity to non-magical damage. But the sheer amount of hit points we can add to the battlefield is nothing short of impressive. The other spell I really wanted to talk about here is Finger of Death. It is a 1 action to cast 60 feet of range, and it reads: you send negative energy coursing through a creature that you can see within range, causing it searing pain. The target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw. It takes 78 plus 30 damage on a failed save and half as much on a successful one. A humanoid killed by the spell rises at the start of your next turn as a zombie that is permanently under your command, following your verbal orders to the best of its abilities. This means that we won't even need to spend spell slots to reassert control over some of our minions. I want you guys to be very aware of how many creatures you are actually going to be controlling, because you don't want to bog down the game. Last thing I wanted to talk about before we go to our last DPR breakdown is the Command Undead feature that we get at level 14. Basically, we can force undead creatures to make a charisma saving throw. If the creature fails and it has an intelligence lower than 12, the creature is under our control forever. There are a lot of good undead monsters that would be very powerful to have. Some of them even have a high challenge rating, like the Nightwalker. If I'm DMing for you, I would not give you a really powerful creature like that, but I'll probably have no problem to give you something cool anyways. let's go over now our final DPR breakdown. Now I'm gonna assume that we're gonna cast some undead using a 6th level spell slot. That creature would be able to attack 12 times through 4 rounds of combat, dealing an average of 146 points of damage. Instead of skeletons, we would now have 2 wights with a +1 bow. Together, they would be able to attack 16 times, dealing an average of 66 points of damage. Like we did with our skeleton previously, we would need to give a sling to our 3rd wight in order for him to use our enchanted pebbles. If we do that, that wight would be able to attack 6 times through the entire combat, adding plus 21 points of damage. Finally, our 3 firebolts would do an average of 42 points of damage. If we average all the damage through the 4 rounds of combat, we would have a 69 DPR. That means that we now surpass the Champion Fighter baseline. So you see guys, even though ourselves and our creatures don't deal a lot of damage by themselves, the sheer amount of attacks that we are able to do with multiple creatures dealing multiple types of damage adds up to a very solid DPR. So hey guys, this wraps up the build for today. Remember to click the like button, subscribe and activate the notification bell for some awesome videos. Bye!